Hey everyone, Mike Mulligan here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am a certified orientation and mobility specialist, and today I'm going to be talking about the technique hand trailing a wall without a cane. I will be combining the two, hand trailing and a cane, in a future video. So I'd like to preface this video with saying this comes after learning the protective techniques, so both upper and lower protective techniques. So if you haven't got a chance to work on those or learn those, please refer back to my previous video to get familiar with those techniques. So hand trailing is a good technique for several different reasons. One, it's a good way to maintain a straight line of travel. Two, it's a good way to detect obstacles and destinations such as doorways, elevators, etc. And then three, it's a good way for a person to know their relative position in space. And finally, one last thing I want to mention before I give you a demonstration of hand trailing is that this is really good for familiar, controlled environments. It's not so good for uncontrolled environments. So places like someone's home or maybe the office that they're in all the time, this could be a good option. But for unfamiliar areas, I wouldn't recommend it. So now I'm going to start with the demonstration. And there's a few things I want to point out about hand trailing that are pretty important. One is when you're hand trailing, you want to keep your hand against the surface you're trailing at all times. Two, you're going to want your hand about waist level. The reason for that is it's a good spot to find, say, doorknobs or different objects. Three, you're going to want your hand to be curled with your palm facing the ground. And the reason for that is if your fingers are straight out, if you catch your fingers on something, it's easy to get them jammed back. But if your hand and fingers are curled, if you come into an object, it's just a little more give there. And then you're just going to have either your pinky and your ring finger slightly touching the surface. You don't want all your fingers on the wall you're trailing, but you want your finger, specifically your pinky and your ring finger, to be slightly touching the wall. And you're going to have your arm out in front of you because you want to give yourself some reaction and warning time. But you're also going to want your elbow to be bent a little bit. You don't want to be all the way straight out. That way, if you do get caught in something, that can give you a lot of tension on the elbow or the wrist. But you want your hand to be out in front of you, but your elbow to be bent slightly. Another thing I'd like to point out while you are hand trailing, which I'm doing now, is you can use your opposite hand in the upper protective technique as a way of giving you some extra protection for chest and head level objects. So you can combine the two. And then finally, one last thing I'd like to point out is if you are hand trailing and you need to cross an open doorway, when you find the door frame, you'll find out that the door is open, and you're going to try your best to project yourself straight line across the open doorway and find the door frame on the other side. And here's a quick clip of me putting hand trailing into practice. Thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully this video was helpful for you and learning about hand trailing without a cane. Have a wonderful day.